Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, if that's when you're watching this live. This is the voice and the face of Dr. Tulo Labinto. I'm CEO and co-founder of Living Spring Family Medical Center here in the amazing city of Mansfield, Texas, where we help our patients live long and well because we believe the quality of life is just as important as the quantity of life. Today, I'm excited to be bringing back one of our guests who was a big hit, and she's none other than Dr. Amanda Adkins. And today we're going to talk about how to transition from being a carnivore, you meat lovers, to being a herbivore. And the topic today is discovering the joy and adventure of going plant-based. I promise this is going to be very, very enlightening for you. So if you have friends that you know could benefit from this, tag them, send this video to them, put them in the comments so they can watch with us. Okay. That being said, I'm going to have Dr. Amanda join us. If you're watching live, hashtag live. You're watching replay, hashtag replay. All right. Dr. Atkins, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's always nice seeing you again, and it's lovely
Yes.
chatting with you behind the scenes as well. You're not a visitor. This is not the first time you're here, so I'm happy to have you here. I'm a big fan of your work. I love what you do to help improve the quality and quantity of people's lives just by eating. So I'm happy to have you on here again. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for bringing me back. I feel honored.
We can do this again. All right. For those who are like, oh, I haven't seen it before. I didn't watch your last live. Can you kindly introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Yes, so I am Dr. Amanda Atkins, and I am a plant based lifestyle physician and also a health and wellness coach and CEO of Enlightenment Health and Wealth, where we help women of faith get off medications safely.
Did you hear that? She helps people get off medicine. That's a big deal. And my question to you is this: why do you do what you do? Because that's not very common. It's easier to send medicines, to prescribe medicines, bye, come back, I'll see you in 2 months. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, so many people were asking me, what else can I do besides take these medications? So that's why I have the come off medication piece or prevent the medication piece. Initially, I was, learning more about lifestyle, just because I wanted to know for myself. I wanted to live a healthy, happy life. And then people were seeing what I was doing and then wanted to know more. And then also, do I have to take these medications all the time? And I was like, well, in fact, you do not. For most people, we can actually come off medicine if you do more work. If I do less work, you do more work, you get off the medication.
That is so true. And for some, those of you who are watching, I want to encourage you. I said this before. If you have people who need to watch this, please have them join. I have seen people eat their way into better health. I've seen people practice what you're talking about, and it takes, no offense, it takes a very good doctor to do some of these things because they're more time consuming. They're not as easy because it's easy for us to just write a prescription and say bye, but we want to empower you to help yourself so you're less dependent on medications. Don't grant me, granted, don't hear me wrong. I'm glad we live in an era where medications are an option, but
Mhm.
we need to not forget the eating piece and what Dr. Atkins does. That's why she's on here is very, very important. So I want to encourage you to find doctors like her who actually encourage you to get off some of these medicines because that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Um, Now, Doc, you're also a vegetarian, correct? You're plant based.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask this question. So one of the tough, I guess, or biggest hiccups with the decision to move to a plant based diet is the deliciousness of food. Okay. And so for someone who's like, oh, I like meat, I like the texture, I like chicken, I like fish, are there alternatives that are plant based that you honestly enjoy, Doc?
That I enjoy, yes, there's a lot of now plant-based substitutes that are out there that if you are an avid meat eater and you want to transition, and I use this transition point, you don't necessarily want to stay there, but as you're transitioning from eating meat to more plant-based, you definitely can use these alternatives, like the Beyond Meat, the Gardein, Impossible, all those things that they're now out there that people can transition to as they're trying to transition to a whole food plant-based diet, because that's where you usually see more of the actual health benefit when you're actually eating the whole food. But if someone really likes that meat texture, then that's why they actually made those things, because they know that's a
Mm,
big buzzword for people now for plant-based. So they actually have that. But I caution people to stay there long term without actually implementing some of the other whole foods,
mm.
because again, these foods are highly processed, they're high in fat, they're high in salt, they're high in sugar. But it can be a good transition point for a lot of people that are, used to eating meat and what it actually tastes like.
Okay. So I have someone who's watching who's like, yes, I've heard the rave. I know plants are better for me, whole foods. And I'm trying to make a gradual transition. Are there any first steps for someone who's like, I mean, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. How do I get there? Like, are there steps to take so they don't feel overwhelmed and I guess the cravings don't override? What would you say?
Yeah, the first thing I tell people to do is just decrease the amount of meat that they're eating and try to make that more of the side dish than the main dish. And there people don't feel like, oh, I'm giving up everything. I actually was talking to a patient today, how she was like, oh, I love chicken. I love eating my chicken. What do you mean I have to take that away? And so I was like, well, let's just, make it smaller. Maybe you only eat it 2 to 3 times a week instead of like 5 to 6 times a week. So that usually people are more open to if they're an avid meat eater. If they're first just saying, okay, I'm just going to decrease the amount of it. And most people do fine with that. And they're like, oh, I really didn't realize that I can eat less of it. Or I like had more room for actually eating those vegetables and I felt more satisfied and actually losing weight and my blood pressure is coming down. Like these things that actually kind of positive reinforcement for them.
Mm, I like that. You can do less of the meat, make it a side dish, not the main dish. Make the side dish, not the main dish. All right. So for someone who's watching, who's like, okay, what about the protein? I hear that when people, they go plant based, they feel weak or maybe their hair falls out. So I've had people tell me that before, like, where do you get the protein? Like, how do I make sure I'm getting my protein intake and it's adequate because I exercise and I need, the protein. What would you say to that,
Yes.
doc?
So first, I tell them plants have protein. We have been brainwashed to think that protein is only from meat, and that's not the case. Plants have protein. So you have like your beans, your legumes, your
Mhm.
lentils, tempeh, which is a soybean, and then you have tofu also that you can actually get plenty of protein through those actual foods. And I tell people that you want to look at more of the whole food, like when you're thinking about it. So it's not just protein. There's no food that is just pure protein. So it has other things in there. So you would look at the chicken or the steak versus the beans. And most people are like, well, when I look at beans, I don't think protein. When I see chicken, I think protein. But then the chicken and the steak also will have like highest amount of fat, high amount of salt, high amount of cholesterol. There's no cholesterol in like the beans and the lentils and things like that. So if you're a person that like I usually work with that has like high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, we are looking at all those things. So I'm like, well, if you compare the two, then the beans are always the better option for you because they have a protein. They're low in salt, they're low in fat, and it's just going to be better for you overall. So you don't have to figure out what do I need to eat for my blood pressure, what I need to eat for my diabetes, what I need to eat for my cholesterol, and it could all be the same thing.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. So we have options, okay? There are options, there are options, there are options. Now, let's talk creative recipes. Can you share any fun and creative recipes that help make the transition to a plant-based diet more enjoyable? People are saying like, what's quick, what's easy? What would you say to start off with?
Yes. So people are always surprised when I tell them I'm not a big cook. I don't like to cook. So they're always like, "Oh my goodness, are you serious?" Like I'm thinking, plant based. Like I'm not a chef. I don't do 5 course meals. I like it basic. So that's why I always bring up lentils. Lentils, I think, is the easiest thing to make. I
Hmm.
just use, some diced carrots, celery, and onions. Saute that with a little vegetable broth, and then add in any type of lentils. and then add in some more vegetable broths. That's the easiest thing that I make. Well, I shouldn't say the easiest, because I do like baked sweet potatoes, or sauteed kale, or crock pot vegetable soup. So I try to look for anything that's basic, that doesn't require a lot of steps, because people get overwhelmed when you tell them they have to do all these different things. And we don't want that. So I usually have like recipes that I may Google. So Daniel's Plate is
Okay.
one that danielsplate.com is actually one of a colleague of mine. Well, actually, it's two ladies that actually have recipes specifically for plant-based, that's low in salt, low in fat, low in sugar. And they're very simple recipes that you can look on there. And it's they're African American ladies that actually can, kind of relate to, African American culture and things of the such. So, because a lot of people are like, oh, plant-based is not going to taste good. So I would, recommend now for my patients to look at their site to actually get recipe ideas. But for me, it's just like, what can I do that's very basic? So I have that now, the lentils and sauteed kale and baked sweet potatoes. So it's all different colors, if you think about that. So you have the different rainbow of things. So you're getting all the different nutrients from the different colors, and it's very simple. So it doesn't take a long time in the kitchen. And another recipe that I actually got from another colleague was plant-based enchiladas. So it's just like diced vegetables that you can use a whole wheat tortilla, and then use enchilada sauce, put that in the oven, and had some beans in there. I mean, it's that simple. Like when she showed that, she was actually doing a plant-based thing for a YouTube channel with another doctor. I was like, I need that recipe, because that's simple. I can get it done and get out.
Yes.
So don't make it complicated.
And I love that you mentioned the crock pot. You can do a one-pot meal type thing. I'm looking for those kind of recipes too. And I love grilled, air fried sweet potatoes. Little cilantro,
Yes.
Italian dressing, the olive oil, little paprika. You grill that or air fry it. It's really nice. I really enjoy that. So there are options, please, for those of you who are watching. Like you heard Doctor say, they make it easy. She's not a chef and she's eating all this kind of green stuff. Sorry. So please be encouraged. Your life will thank you for it. Your quality of life will thank you for it. Now, my next question is, I'm going to throw out at you. I have someone who's watching who's like, yeah, when I eat veggies, I don't feel full. There's something about meat that kind of sits in your stomach or it kind of hits the spot. How would you address, like, I don't quite feel full? How would you address that, Doc?
Yeah, that is interesting that you mentioned that, because I actually was talking to another person that was talking about that, as far as our mentality of why we think we should feel full. Like, why should we have that? I don't know, that sensation there. We shouldn't feel full. We should feel energized. We don't want something just sitting there in our stomach, like, oh yeah, like, oh, let me unbuckle this, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. That's what most people think. So you want to feel satisfied. You want to feel energized when you eat. So first off, we have to think like that. But I definitely get it, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I just ate this salad, because that's most of the time what people think, us plant-based people eat is just salad. And after you eat that, you're like, I can definitely eat more. So the number one thing is, when you switch to plant-based, your meals usually are larger. So most of the time we're thinking restriction, because if we eat things that are meat-based, or if we eat things that are a lot of fat, a lot of sugar, they're also going to be high in calories. So you want to actually dial that back. But when you actually eat whole food plant-based and you're eating mostly greens, those hardly have any type of calories. Actually feel full. So you're going to be eating more greens. Your plate's going to be full. And I don't know if Dr. Benton remembers this, like when we were at the plant-based conference, of how the food, the food, there's so much food, you can eat it all, and how people's plates are like, they have 2 plates and it's like overly full. And it's not like you're eating a lot of calories, because it's so they're so low in calories, high in nutrients.
Good. Yes.
So that's another thing that you look at. You're not going to be looking at it more in a restricted base, but more of, am I eating the foods that are high in nutrients but low in calories? So you're going to feel you need more food to eat. And then you also want to make sure you're eating like grains, add in a little bit of fat, like the healthy fats, like your avocado, or the quinoa or brown rice. That sometimes helps people feel, more satisfied. Again, you don't want that full, like overly full type feeling like you do, most people think, on Thanksgiving. But those foods can actually help you feel more satisfied, more like there has substance to it, with some of the grains and some of the fats. But again, that's more of the topping than the main dish.
I love it. And I love how you mentioned we're eating for to feel energized, not to feel full. I will be honest with you, I do remember the distension, the fullness feeling growing up as a child. You finish your plate, you ate everything until you had that
Mm-hmm.
distended feeling where you're a little bit uncomfortable, you didn't feel quite full. Well, there was still food left over and you were forced to eat. And so it's also a mindset thing. Do I need to feel like that to actually be energized? It starts from here too. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Next question for you. I have someone who's saying, all right, doc, I agree. I'm going to eat more veggies and fruits and eat more whole grain. I'm going to get my legumes in, have the color plate with different colored vegetables. But I got to hang out with the girls. I'm going out to eat. I'm going to social situations and dining out. Like, what are tips for navigating such situations following a plant-rich or plant-based lifestyle?
Yes. So eating out, definitely nowadays is more, I think, plant-based friendly, because there's usually a menu that you can actually pick from, that if you
Hmm.
look ahead. And if you know you're going out with, a group of friends, you may suggest the restaurant. So you know that there's food there that
Your
you can eat.
options.
uh I tell people never go to a steakhouse. So usually that's the only place I found nothing, nothing to eat. You'll get some lettuce and maybe a tomato on the side. But that's the only place now that I figure that, because they have bacon grease even in the potatoes. Like, they actually said that they roll it in like bacon grease before they give it to you. Oh my gosh, I was so devastated when I heard that. I'm like, you're doing that to the potato? Like, why are we sitting there? So sorry, but that just popped up in my mind when I was thinking of when going out to eat, because I was just like, oh, I can get, a baked sweet potato here. They have that. And they were like, well, we actually roll it in bacon. So I'm sorry, that went off. But yeah, so you can actually look at the menu at a time and actually decide what you can eat.
Hmm.
And then also, I think I mentioned this before, but I learned it from my husband that just because it's not on the menu doesn't mean you can't ask for it. You can
Ah.
pull things together, that you see that they may be able to do,
Hmm.
especially if they have a kitchen. And most chefs are, open to doing that if they're not like overly crowded or overly busy. They can actually make you something. And actually, one of the physicians that's very known for his plant-based research, he actually calls the chef out and says, I'm allergic to all oil and salt. So what else can you give me? So when you say that word allergic, they want to be very careful, that they do not contaminate things. I don't necessarily take it that far, but you could do that. You can actually ask to talk to them. And then of course, if you're very pleasant, nice, and then I tell people leave a tip, you can return to those places and these people will be
Mm,
more than
mm,
happy to
mm.
accommodate you. And you may even be teaching the waitress or the waiter something new that they may be able to offer someone else. So you may be planting a seed, to help someone in the
I
future.
like
So
that.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I have another question for you. Can you provide any advice for someone who's like, I'm really afraid as far as the cravings for meat and dairy products during the transition? Any tips for the cravings? So
Yes.
before, so they can prepare before.
Yes. So to know that it can happen, usually when I work with clients, I have them go through a detox or a cleanse, to show them that they actually can reduce those cravings. You will have
Mm,
that usually in the first few days. And I tell people, drink water, make sure you're eating a lot of leafy greens, make sure you're feeling satisfied, make sure you're not eating too late or waiting till you're overly hungry to eat. That's when we usually get into trouble. And then your body actually recreates those taste buds very quickly if you go through that cleansing period. And then you try to go back, and your body will tell you, I don't like that. Please don't do it. Because you'll start to feel sluggish. You'll get headaches. Your stomach will ache. So I tell them, try to go through that cleansing period first. And like I said, it can be 2 or 3 days. And you can actually be on the other side of it if you're just like willing to stick through it. Lots of water, staying hydrated, and never wait till you're too hungry to actually
Hmm.
eat.
Hmm. I like that. Um, the cleanse. I've seen, even people doing the just a detox for 2 weeks, like they lose the sugar cravings and then, they fall after a while. They go to a steakhouse. And then they're like, oh, doc, I went back. And I'm like, oh, you got to try. You got to try. The cravings come, but they go too. All
Yes.
right. So my next question for you is, how could for someone who's watching who's like, yes, I see myself doing this. Maybe I can see my husband or my wife doing this. I'm not sure. But are there any tips to make it fun and interactive experience for the whole family? Like, do you have any tips? Because it's hard to cook for one person and have to cook for another person. What are tricks to kind of get everyone kind of looped in? Would you say, Doc?
Yes. So first, I would try to pick a meal that everyone liked that was maybe meat based. So, like, I
Okay.
love Mexican food, and so it's easy to switch out some of the meat for beans or other veggies, and then
Okay.
just kind of like, oh yeah, so we're gonna have taco night or something like that, and then just have that option for people to actually try it and see if they like it. Some they're like, oh, it doesn't taste like my beef or chicken, but hey, I can do this. And just try to introduce them to something that they already love, but just try to like supplement one thing that may be more plant based. So, like I said, take away the beef and use like more beans, or you can make it from like tofu. That's
Mhm.
a different texture for people, but most time people may be open to trying it. If your significant other is like the meat and potato person, it may be more of your example that's showing them what to
Mhm.
eat, and then they can try it. Um, and that may actually help them to be more open to actually eating the plant-based foods. But it can be difficult to navigate if you have a huge family and they're used to eating meat. I have that in my extended family, and I actually made them a pure plant-based breakfast. It was interesting to see them try, but some of them were like, "Oh, this actually didn't taste too bad. Like, oh, I didn't think I would like this, but this was actually good." So you never know what they may try. My mom actually has implemented some like the way she makes her sweet potatoes now. She loves this
Mhm.
different recipe that we use instead of like all the brown sugar. So you never
Mhm.
know what it may spark in someone else's life to just introduce it. Don't try to beat it down their throat, because then they will resist. They
Mhm.
will
Mhm.
actually say, no, I'm not going to do this. But like I said, I would just try a meal or a category of meals that you guys like, and then just try to substitute in something that may be plant-based and see if they like it.
Yes, I love the idea. And one of the things I've tried that's worked is I'll saute the same vegetables some of my said family members refuse to eat and put the same spices I used to cook the food. They smell
Mhm.
like, oh, what's that? It's good. And I'm like, yeah, you just ate all veggies, but yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes,
So that is that
exactly.
is that is really good. Now, Doc, I know you've worked with people before. You've helped them use food as medicine, but can you share some success stories of people who have experienced, a better quality of life, improved health after transitioning from that to a plant-based lifestyle?
Yeah, so actually I just had today's Tuesday. So yesterday, I always get my days mixed up. But he actually came back, he was a diabetic, or he is a diabetic. And we were talking in his first couple visits with him and his wife. And I just asked him, what do you want to be around for? Because his blood sugars were out of control. He was obese. His blood pressure was a little bit high. He's on several medications. And he was like, well, it's very important for me to be around for my grandchildren. And so every time he would come in, we'll talk about, what are you eating? What have you doing for your exercising? And then just kind of remind him, oh, is this actually putting you closer to helping your grandchildren being here long term? And then just yesterday, he came in, he had lost 20 pounds. His A1C is almost normal, it's like 6.5. He's on a very low dose of metformin, and he is eating more plants. We always talk about him taking away that meats, the bacon, the eggs that he was eating before. And he's exercising on a regular basis. I mean, he looks great. And it just filled my heart to see that he actually took that. He said, see, I was listening, Doc. I want to be around. And we, again, start talking about his grandchildren and how his grandparents weren't alive for him. And he wanted to make sure that he was around for his grandchildren. And just to see that, because like you said, we don't have a lot of time to talk in the actual visits, but when someone actually shows interest and actually tells me about their goals, I usually take a little bit more time to really enforce the plant-based eating and lifestyle and all the things that they can change. And it was just like, okay, I can keep going. Even if people feel like they're not listening the first time, I can keep going because I want to hear those stories. And I mean, he was just so proud of himself for actually, he said, see, Doc, I just wanted to come in today to say, I told you so.
And the truth is, he sees you less for it, and you've helped him. So this is big. And one of the things I want to emphasize, because you talked about, seeing their grandchildren, people the grandchildren come in worried that, oh, their father had this disease, their grandparents had this disease, and they're afraid to have the same thing. I say, maybe it's the lifestyle that's hereditary, not necessarily the disease. So if you change that, you can actually change your life. So be encouraged. And that's why we're having these conversations, because, and this is why actually I do the lives, because sometimes I feel I'm nagging. So when I have these conversations to hear from someone else, I've had patients listen to you, Doc, and say, yeah, I watched the video. I heard you talking about me, and so we need the changes. So this we'll keep fighting the good fight. But I have a question here for you, Doc. Someone's asking, hi, Valerie. She says, what was in your plant-based breakfast? What was it made of? She's curious.
What's in my plant-based breakfast?
The one that you made for your family. You had made something. Yeah, that one. She wants to know.
Yes. So I made it was a tempeh like scramble. I wasn't using tofu then because I was trying to get people to not do the more processed tofu. And it was with tempeh, and then also with like some sauteed spinach. So it was like a scramble. So instead of using eggs, it was like a scramble. And then they also had avocado toast. And then it was I'm trying to think what else. It was some type of sauteed potatoes. So it was something that people would notice, like for a breakfast that they would have, but just adding in some of the plant-based things. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good idea. Little spices, little pepper too. Bam. Yes. Okay. Real quick, last questions before we wrap up. Are there resources? I know you mentioned the Daniel's plate. I did look it up. Really, really good. And she says, thank you, by the way. Oh, you're welcome. And Daniel's plate. Any other resources that you have that you would encourage people who are like, oh, I'm about to start? Like, where can people find that, or maybe find a platform to work with you, or learn more about ways to transition to a plant-based diet?
Yeah, so if looking for recipes, I would say Forks Over Knives also has a lot of recipes. I usually go there trying to help people out when they're trying to find like maybe healthy desserts, or especially with the holidays coming up, they usually have a lot of different things there. Dr. Michael Greger, I always loved his books. His stuff. Yeah, so he has a lot of things there. He even has a cookbook of I think it's How Not to Diet cookbook. So that's a good one. I have his How Not to Die book here. He has like a lot of things there. And then let me look up here, because I have Vegetable Kingdom by Terry Bryant. I was looking at my bookcase to see what other things they have there. He is a African-American vegan chef. So for some people that are looking more for the like that soul food type comfort
Mm,
thing, he has some
mm,
things that's
mm,
there. So I mentioned a few things from that one. So those are definitely good options if you want to try different recipes. And I always tell people like everybody's taste buds are a little bit different. And
mm.
so I usually try to take a recipe and make it exactly like they say the first time, and then I tailor it to what I like. So I make it easier, simpler steps. So don't look at it and like, oh, I don't like any of these recipes. Try it and then see what you can come up with for yourself.
Awesome. Awesome. This has been so, so, so good. Thank you so much for coming. We're already past time and the conversation could still keep going. I have other questions, but I'm going to stop. I'm definitely going to have you back. We're going to do 3 months. We're not going to make it that far. We did it in July. So 3 months. Yes. We're going to do it again. But this was really, really good. And for those who are watching who are like, man, doc, I like this doctor. I want to interact with her. I want to have her come speak on my platform. I like to work with her one-on-one or in a group setting. Doc, where can people find you?
So my website is www.dramandamd.com. So it's like dramandamd.com. You can book to have a free consult call with me. And I'm actually about to launch my 6-week group program that will actually start at the end of October. So you're more than welcome to join that with me. And we'll go through that like cleanse that I was talking about. And then you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Amanda Adkins.
All right, there you have it. I've put it at the bottom of the screen for those of you who are watching the YouTube and those of you who are watching on Facebook as well. And her handle, she makes it very, very easy. Dr. Amanda Atkins with Adkins.
Yes.
So I have all of that here. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us this afternoon after a busy day. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you all for watching. Thank you, Valerie, for joining. Thank you, Jozo and Mr. Josh. I see quite a few people who joined us live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, as you know, caring is sharing. Feel free to share this with those who you know could be encouraged in their journey to eating better for a better quality and quantity of life. And as always, if you or anyone you know is looking for an awesome, a thorough, and a compassionate family physician in the Mastery, Texas area who will help you live long and well, I am she. Have a good one. Thanks again, Doc. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.